The Kalrathi delegation had made one critical miscalculation about humans. They mistook patience for weakness. Ambassador Zethrak stood 7 feet tall, his chitinous plates gleaming under the station's artificial lights. His species had conquered 43 systems through calculated intimidation and overwhelming force. The humans, with their single-populated world and handful of colony outposts, seemed like easy additions to the Kalrathi collective. Nick Chen sat across the negotiation table, his posture relaxed, almost lazy. The Kalrathi had been calling him the Cub for 3 days now, a term they used for untested younglings. At 28, Nick was indeed young for a human diplomat, but that was precisely why Lisa Okonkwo had chosen him for this assignment. Lisa stood behind Nick, serving as his cultural advisor. She was in her 50s, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun, her dark eyes missing nothing. The Kalrathi dismissed her entirely. Their culture valued only those who sat at the table, not those who stood behind. Another miscalculation. The terms are simple, Cub. Zethrak clicked, his translator rendering the words in flat, emotionless English. Humanity provides mining rights to the Kepler colonies. 40% of all extracted resources go to the collective. In return, we provide protection. Nick smiled mildly. That's quite generous. We'll need time to review. There is no review. Zethrak's claws tapped against the metal table, a Kalrathi gesture of dismissal. You accept now, or we take the colonies by force. Your dozen patrol ships cannot stand against our fleet. Lisa leaned forward slightly, whispering something into Nick's ear. Zethrak's eyes narrowed. Through 3 days of negotiations, the female human had been doing this, offering guidance, providing information. It irritated him that the Cub needed such constant supervision. Tell the female to step back, Zethrak commanded. Her presence at your shoulder shows weakness. Nick's smile didn't waver. Ms. Okonkwo stays where she is. Zethrak stood abruptly, his full height designed to intimidate. He moved around the table with deliberate slowness, approaching Lisa. In Kalrathi culture, advisors know their place. Perhaps she needs to be taught. He reached out one clawed hand toward Lisa's shoulder. Nick was out of his chair before Zethrak's claw moved an inch closer. The motion was so fast that the Kalrathi security guards barely registered it. Nick's hand clamped around Zethrak's wrist with enough force to stop the ambassador mid-reach. The room went silent. Nick's voice, when it came, was no longer mild. It was cold, flat, and carried the weight of something ancient and dangerous. Touch her again. See what happens. For the first time in 3 days, Zethrak saw something in the human's eyes that his species recognized. The look of a predator defending its pack. You dare? Zethrak began. I dare. Nick's grip tightened. The Kalrathi's exoskeleton creaked. You've spent 3 days calling me Cub, thinking we're weak because we're patient. Because we negotiate. Because we smile. Lisa spoke then, her voice calm and professorial. Ambassador, my colleague is demonstrating what we call restraint. It's a concept your species seems to have confused with docility. Nick released Zethrak's wrist and stepped back, but his body remained coiled, ready. Here's what you didn't research about humans, Ambassador. We're persistence hunters. On our homeworld, we didn't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest. We evolved to outlast everything else, to track prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion, to survive in every climate on our planet, to turn every setback into a lesson. He walked slowly around the table, and now the Kalrathi security guards tensed. You've conquered 43 systems through intimidation. Do you know how many times humans have been conquered in our history? Zethrak said nothing. Thousands, Lisa answered. We've been enslaved, colonized, occupied, and oppressed by our own species for millennia. We've fought wars that killed millions. We've survived plagues, ice ages, and our own worst impulses. And we're still here. Still learning. Still adapting. Nick stopped in front of Zethrak. You think your fleet scares us? Ambassador, we've been preparing for contact with hostile species since we first looked up at the stars. Every war game, every contingency plan, every weapon system we've developed has been designed around one assumption, that we'd be outgunned and outnumbered. He leaned in closer. Your 43 conquered systems? They surrendered quickly because they had something to lose. We humans, we're the species that looked at impossible odds and said, watch this. We're the ones who strapped ourselves to controlled explosions to reach orbit, who survived on a planet that spent billions of years trying to kill us, who turned teamwork and stubbornness into our greatest weapons. Lisa pulled up a holographic display. Your fleet of 200 ships is impressive, Ambassador. But while you were posturing, we've been evacuating the Kepler colonies. The installations you wanted to control? Already stripped and rigged with explosives. The minerals you wanted to mine? We've poisoned the extraction sites. They'll take decades to decontaminate. Zethrak's plates rattled, a sign of shock. You would destroy your own resources? Scorched earth, Nick said softly. It's an old human strategy. If we can't have it, you won't either. And here's the thing about humans, Ambassador. We're spiteful. You hurt us and we'll make sure you get nothing for it. We'll make you chase us across every star system, spending resources, losing ships, watching your collective slowly bleed itself dry, fighting an enemy that refuses to stay down. He walked back to his chair and sat down, the mild smile returning. Or you could accept our counteroffer. A mutual defense pact, 20% mineral rights in exchange for technology sharing and joint colony ventures. You get resources. We get advanced tech. Nobody dies. Everybody profits. Zethrak stared at the young human who had moments ago been so easy to dismiss. The cub had shown teeth, and the ambassador realized with disturbing clarity that those teeth had been there all along, hidden behind diplomatic smiles and patient negotiation. Lisa returned to her position behind Nick's chair. The choice is yours, Ambassador. But I should mention that this conversation has been broadcast to every human colony and military installation in our space. They're waiting to see if you're the species that chose wisdom or the species that learned why you don't corner a predator that's been playing nice. Zethrak's claws trembled slightly. In 3 days, he had learned nothing about humans. In 3 minutes, Nick had taught him everything. I will need to consult with the collective, Zethrak said finally. Nick's smile widened just slightly. Take all the time you need, Ambassador. We're very patient. The Kalrathi delegation left the station within the hour. 3 weeks later, they accepted humanity's counteroffer. And across human space, the story spread, of the day the cub showed the apex predator what it meant to be human.